Broadcasting from the heart of the nation, in the Hoosier Media Network studios, the next generation in conservative talk radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Yes, it is. What is up, my friends? What's up? Welcome into it. It is another weekend edition of the Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier. Hey, so great to have you along for the ride as usual. First and foremost, I've been saying this the last couple days, but pat yourself on the back, man. You finally made it. The longest work week of the entire year is done. It's over. It's only downhill from here. Why do I say that? It is the first entire 5-day full work week of 2025 after the holidays. It's very difficult to get back into the groove of things after Christmas and New Year's, and you did it. So congratulations. You scream, I scream. We all scream for ice cream, except it's not National Ice Cream Day. That would be the day Joe Biden officially dropped out of the presidential race. See what we did there? Yeah. All right. Welcome into the show. So great to have you all over the country as we continue to do our thing.
We'll do it live
each and every weekend. Here's how you can find us. HoosierReason.com is the website. HOOSER Reason.com. Also, you can find us on our social media with the same handle at Hoosier Reason. And of course, our podcast on any of your favorite podcasting sites at The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. All right. So bottom of this hour, we have Dr. Aaron Pomerantz. He is a social psychologist. He's a researcher and contributor to Young Voices. We're going to be discussing some of the cultural shifts in society. Could we be seeing the end of DEI in society now that the government's about ready to transition? Can you believe it? We are just over a week away from the inauguration of President Donald Trump. Kind of exciting, right? We're getting all ready. Democrats are panicky. Congress is already working on the Trump agenda. We have the reconciliation bill that we will discuss throughout the program a little bit and see if it's going to be one bill, two bills, or broken up into multiple bills. So we'll get to all that here in just a little bit. But we are broadcasting all over the country. So great to have you on all of our great radio affiliates across the nation, including Chad, including our great producer down in Dallas, Texas, including the Gulf of America. The statement from Donald Trump earlier this week that we're going to change the Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of America. We are very proud to say that we are booming and broadcasting loud and proud into the great Gulf of America with our great radio affiliates at WPMO 1580 AM The Game out of Pascagoula, Mississippi, and AM 1000 WJNZ in Mobile, Alabama. We love you guys down there. And yes, booming loud and proud down into the Gulf of America. I love the trolling that we've seen. Donald Trump, while he is the nicest guy, and that doesn't quite work well sometimes in politics, but he is one of those super nice guys that just gets along with everybody, and we'll get to that in a second, that while he does it, he also loves trolling, and the trolling of making Canada the 51st state, wanting to buy Greenland, which is actually kind of half semi-serious about that one, and then changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And I think he's relatively serious about that one as well. Making fun of Justin Trudeau for being the governor of the 51st state of the nation with the nation of Canada. But hey, you know what? Why not get the left side all triggered and worked up and riled up? Because Donald Trump likes to do that. At the same time, if you get along with Donald Trump and if you just show him a little bit of courtesy, he thinks you're your best friend. He just gets along with you and he'll just work with you and do whatever that you want to do. He'll make sure that he's working side by side with you to get the agenda done. That was kind of obvious during the Jimmy Carter memorial that we had seen on Thursday this week when he was sitting next to Barack Obama, was asked about that because there was a lot of tweets behind the scene of what was being said between Donald Trump and Barack Obama. Mind you, Barack Obama, the guy that said that Donald Trump was a fascist, was the Nazi that was going to weaponize the Department of Justice and was going to, again, fundamentally change the United States of America. Those were the words of Barack Obama during the Barack Obama reign, but Donald Trump apparently is the guy that's going to fundamentally change the United States of America. Donald Trump was asked about it and said,
You mentioned the Carter funeral today. What were you talking to Barack Obama about?
It did look very friendly, I must say. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it, how friendly it looked. I saw it on your wonderful network just a little while ago before I came in, and I said, boy, they look like two people that like each other, and we probably do. We have little different philosophies, right? But we probably do. I don't know. We just got along. But I got along with just about everybody on that. We met backstage, as you know, before we went on, and I thought it was a beautiful service, but we all got along very well, which is good.
It is good. That's the way politics is supposed to be. At the same time, I always get wary when Donald Trump does that because he can go after you. You can be nasty. If you remember Lion Ted in the primaries back in 2015, the Lion Ted from regarding Ted Cruz, and then Marco Rubio and the Bushes, which the Bushes still that's still kind of split. George Bush didn't say anything to Donald Trump during that memorial service, but Donald Trump knows how to go after you because it's not personal to him. It's just the New Yorker in him going after. And then when you do start getting along, then you're best friends. And that's the way politics can be. That's a great way to unite people, bring people together, which is why we're seeing the great umbrella of the Republican Party. It is also a little bit concerning, just throwing it out there, because Barack Obama is truly one of the most not so good people in the country that's driven the political power for a very long time and has done a lot to do a lot of harm in this nation. So, yeah, he said he disagrees with them politically, but can you still be friends with someone like that? There's a line that can be there. And I hope that, I guess Donald Trump is one of those, have your friends close, but your enemies closer. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Anyways, there's a lot to talk about this week, especially things that are still going on right now as we get into what's trending.
What's trending today?
Including the wildfires in California. I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, but there is an update as of this weekend. Governor Gavin Newsom from the state of California making his claim now that he is hands-off, did not know much of what was going on with the lack of resources in Los Angeles County, how it's a local issue, and Donald Trump's doing nothing more than just spreading misinformation.
What the president-elect was saying about state water project and the Delta smelt somehow being culpable of somehow leading to some of the challenges that we face down here was it's words. It's a salad. It's the form and substance of fog. It's made up. It's delusional.
What?
And it's a consistent mantra from Trump going back years and years and years. And it's reinforced over and over and over within the right wing. And so it's become gospel. And it's so profoundly ignorant. And yet he absolutely believes it. It's not an ignorance on his part. It's sort of an indelible misinformation that he sort of manifested a falsehood.
All the misinformation from Donald Trump. So the propaganda machine has begun. You got to admit that Gavin Newsom, the ultimate narcissist, I think, out there, getting the headshots and the video of him standing there with his hair slicked back and his nice aviator glasses, and he's looking over the fire, and he's just sitting there with his hands on his hip. Oh, yeah, we're going to fix this and get it all cleaned up. And you can see how well it's actually worked out, that he's starting to get a major hit politically because of this wildfire, because of the horrible way that they've actually handled this. Now, I'm no expert on emergency management. However, growing up in Kansas, growing up in Colorado, having wildfires a predominant issue for me. We've talked about it throughout the week that there are policies that could have been done for preventative maintenance, like, I don't know, cleaning up the dead brush and the dead trees out of the forest, so that way you could do some prevention instead of having Kindle just there ready to be ignited at any moment. That would be something that you could probably do for preventative maintenance, but the environmental wackos in California don't like that because, well, we need it to be all natural. You could talk about the DEI hires. You could talk about money being removed and shifted to other places. Now, I'm no expert in California. I've been to California once in my life. I don't know California politics and where their budget actually has money being appropriated to. What we can say, though, is that the preventative maintenance is the 2020 hindsight that we should probably learn from here. And that's all we have. But now the pointing, the blaming, the finger pointing begins. Gavin Newsom blaming the local authorities, the fire chief saying there's no water there because they have nothing to do with water management, the city just not saying a whole lot at all. And everybody's making fun of Donald Trump and trying to blame Republicans for misinformation. And then Gavin Newsom says this, which is really weird. Now, the reason this is new, this was on a podcast that was released late Friday night going into the weekend from the Pod Save America. And it was apparently, according to the host of this Pod Save America podcast, that it was a request from Governor Newsom's governor's office for this podcaster to come to the site to do an interview with him. And the reason I laugh is because the mainstream media is right there. They're following. You're getting national attention of what's going on in California. Where's the press conference from the governor for the media to relay your information? But you didn't go that way. Instead, you call in a podcaster to sit down because you have something to say. You want to clear up some of the misinformation. You want to clear up some of the propaganda being spread by the Republicans. And you want to do it on a podcast. It's kind of weird to me. Now, it's a relatively big podcast, according to the YouTube channel that Pod Save America has. They have like 741,000 subscribers, so it's a relatively decent podcast. But you didn't do it to your mainstream media buddies? You didn't do it to the TV outlets that were there doing a press conference? Hey, I have some things to say to clear up here. You can't do that because you just got called out by your own constituents that were running down the street calling you out.
Governor, I live here, Governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now.
I'm literally talking to the president right now.
Answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally, I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around to make the
Why
call.
is the president not taking your call?
Because it's not going through. So
Why?
I have to get cell service.
So let's get it.
He tries to do this nice and dramatic whisper. He's not going through. First, he said, I'm on the phone with the president right now. Oh, can I listen to your conversation? We need to do something about this now. Well, I tried to call, but I tried to call 5 times. It's not going through. There's just no service. I can't go through. He got called out. He's getting a major political hit right now. The panic's starting to set in. So the pointing fingers begins. Now, from all of us outside of California that are wishing and hoping and praying for those that are being affected by this, everybody losing their homes and the buildings that are being destroyed, the businesses that are being destroyed, our thoughts and prayers go to you. And it shouldn't be a political issue. That's the problem with today. This should not be a political issue. It should be recovery. We should have this controlled. We should have this managed. But in the largest state with an environmental protection agency that is the largest state EPA organization out of any other state in the nation, they have the worst wildfires and they are running around with their chickens with their heads cut off. They don't know what to do about this. They're the environmental experts, right? They have so many environmental policies that you could get a citation if you're barbecuing in your backyard and your neighbor doesn't like the odor drifting over the fence. You can literally get a citation in some of these cities. That's how crazy these environmentalists are. And they can't handle a wildfire. And then he says, well, it's a county issue. I got so many things to do. In fact, he tried to play the blame game saying how overwhelmed he is.
I want to know the answers. So I'm the governor of California. I want to know the answer. I've got that question. I can't tell you about how many people, what happened. On my own team saying what happened. And I want to get the answers. And I'll be candid with you, I wasn't getting straight answers.
Yeah.
I watched the press conference. I met with some of those leaders. We had my team start talking to local leaders, saying what's going on. Our state,
and you weren't getting straight answers from
I was getting
leaders.
Different answers. And so for me, that's not as true. When you start getting different answers, then I'm not getting the actual story. And they're assessing it. And I get that as well. You have to have a little bit of grace. Back to the point. We're in this emergency environment and everything else. So I just want to determine the facts. But no one has any patience anymore. In this weaponized, back to the grievance of Trump, everyone else. People, there's immediacy. And lies travel the proverbial world. And it's hard to get the facts out there unless you have the backing of those facts and you can communicate them soberly. And so that's what we're trying to achieve.
How dare the people want instant gratification on having information on what's going on? How dare people demand instant results and instant action and want to know what's going on at the time? How dare Gavin Newsom, the head of one of the largest states with the biggest wildfires, actually have information that he's supposed to relay to the people? How dare he do something like that? I smell desperation. I think the fact that he's starting to panic a little bit because this is not going the way he wants to, in a propaganda sense. We'll do some more of this when we come back. It's your weekend edition of The Voice of Reason. Stay good.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. It's your Patriot on the Prairie. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
As relates to this, but I have 10 other things we're doing concurrently as well. I mean, across the board on recovery, on disaster assistance, getting the major disaster declaration. It may be the first one in U.S. history over a text with the White House within literally 36 hours. To get 100% reimbursement for folks out here. We've been working concurrently in all of these areas. We're doing executive orders as I speak as it relates to recovery and land use, dealing with speculation and fraud and trying to address issues of the Coastal Commission here and address the issue of planning permits and how we address all of the myriad of needs for small businesses, all of this in real time. Again, as the state, even though this is not a state responsibility area, to support the city and the county that are overwhelmed.
What did he just say? Did he just say that it was not his responsibility, that this isn't a state responsibility, it's a county responsibility, but they're being overwhelmed, so I guess we'll have to step in and do a little bit here. You got the National Guard coming into LA County because this is such a big deal. This is a state issue. How water flows is a county issue, but it's also regulated by state issues. The State Forest Service would be one that would be the ones cleaning up some of the county forests in the area with the kindle that's sitting there waiting to be destroyed. All the preventative maintenance, those are statewide issues, and the response of how devastating this is, yeah, that would be a statewide issue as well. But I don't know if you just got, Chad, did you catch all that? That sounds like a blame game the whole time. I'm a victim. I'm super busy. It's not really my fault. Not to compare here because they're a little bit different scenarios, but I mean, how in the world does the governor of Florida handle all of those hurricanes all the time, right? I mean, Ron DeSantis, but all the other ones before that. How in the world did they handle all of those major hurricanes that go through Florida time and time again? And yet we don't hear about this devastation to where they didn't have things ready. They weren't prepared for things. They didn't have policies in place to be able to handle it. Come on, man. This is literally the function of government. If you're going to have government, and especially as big as government is in California, that's supposed to be the basic role of what government does, which leads us into our emails.
What's in the mailbox?
Which, by the way, if you want to send an email to us, you're more than welcome to. You can go to our website at HoosierReason.com, or you can send it directly to us at HoosierMediaNetwork@gmail.com. Got an email earlier this week from one of our listeners out in actually Denver. I mean, you guys battle with wildfires all the time. Our great affiliate of KNUS. Listener Mike asking about repercussions for elected officials. If they're not doing their jobs, would there be repercussions for elected officials that fail to perform their duties? It's a great question. In fact, James Woods, the Hollywood actor, made that comment earlier this week as well.
Laura, with all due respect, if it is true that things were handled this way, if it is true that Gavin Newsom is the absolute blithering idiot that I believe he is in the way he has handled fire management in this state again and again and again and again, this isn't a wake-up call. This is the kind of thing they have tribunals for, where they try people and say, you had an oath of office to perform certain duties. When you're the fire chief, this isn't a social justice exercise that you're in charge of. This is you getting water to areas that need water because there are fires in 100-mile-an-hour winds burning houses to the ground.
Chad, I truly thought that the chief of police for a county, especially LA County, that is relatively prone to wildfires, I thought that the chief of police was not there to prevent fires or deal with fire recovery or deal with fire responses. I thought the chief of police was a DEI move in order for a county to look more progressive and more woke by choosing someone based on their skin color or their religion or their sexual orientation or their gender genitalia. I thought that was the role of the chief of police. I mean, why would you need someone that actually can do a job as a fire chief or as a police chief? Why would you need someone like that? I thought it was a social experiment. Oh yeah, maybe not. Maybe that's backfiring in their jobs right now, and maybe this is going to be the wake-up call for some to say, hey, maybe we should actually hire people that are, I don't know, ready to do the job. Lots more coming up on the show. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. Truth, reason, and common sense. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Yes, it is. Welcome back into it. Reason, common sense, rationale. So great to have you for another weekend here on the program. We always love you joining us as we continue to recap your week, talk about some of your favorite issues and not so favorite issues that we've seen throughout the week, trying to recap and get you set. We are just a week away from the inauguration of Donald Trump. The Democrats doing whatever they can to sabotage and throw their fits beforehand, passing the blame. The legal suits are at least done for now, at least from what we've seen after that decision earlier this week as well. The fires going on and so much more. Just to recap that, it is funny to me where the environmentalists in California don't look at their own policies, don't look at who they've hired, don't look at the inexperience for the recovery or for the preventative maintenance that's been done in California. They blame climate change. Now, At the same time, California wildfires are going on. I live in Kansas with my flagship here at the Hoosier Media Studios. And it's been an entire week of single-digit temperatures, a layer of ice on the ground, and snow that we've seen on Thursday. We actually got like 7 inches of snow, which is totally unrealistic for Kansas because we usually don't get that much. So while you're having dryness and fires and people that don't know how to manage that, we're having roads shut down and schools and highways and businesses shut down because of snow. Talk about climate change. Yeah, major fail on that one. All right, let's get into what's happening this week, shall we?
It's your week in review.
There was, outside of the wildfire issue, there were a lot of other political issues going on in D.C., including out of the state of Kentucky. A federal judge has also now laid the smackdown on the Biden administration by scrapping and ruling against the changes of the Title IX rules the Biden administration has tried to implement during the administration, reversing what, according to Newsmax, they're calling the LGBTQ plus regulations that the Biden administration tried to impose. If you remember, the Biden administration, actually just in the last year, if I remember correct, has been trying to say that Chad, I'm always confused with this, trans women, men that want to be women, or is that trans men? I don't remember which one's which. It doesn't matter. I think it's trans women. The men that want to be women are protected in women's sports for colleges. Yeah, okay. Mrs. Voice of Reason shaking her head. She said that's right. Okay. We got the terminology down here. I'm totally hip and up with the times. The protection got included into the Title IX rules under the Biden administration. That judge scrapping that. Are we seeing the end of the wokeness in society as the Biden administration fades out? The Trump administration begins to fade in. We're seeing the end of DEI. Meta, Mark Zuckerberg making that announcement this week that he's ending DEI with the metaverse. The reversal of Title IX. Businesses scrapping DEI across the board. What does that mean moving forward? And how do we protect ourselves from the wokeness infiltrating ourselves again? That's our next conversation with our next guest. Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Let's go to the Hoosier Media Hotline.
Really happy to have on the program. He's a social psychologist. He's a researcher and a contributor to Young Voices. Really happy to have on the program with us here this weekend, Dr. Aaron Pomerantz. Aaron, how are you, my friend?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Hey, doing great. Happy New Year to you. I appreciate you jumping on. Are we seeing the end of DEI across the nation with businesses turning their back on this type of mentality?
No, I don't think we are. I think what we're seeing is the end of performative DEI. And I think that's actually a really good thing. I think that, for the longest time, there's been a divide between what the more academic, research-oriented approaches to DEI, which is the sphere I live in, what we think we should be doing and what we recommend, and then what actually gets done. And those things are not always parallel. Sometimes they're totally distinct. The disconnect can be massive. And, DEI became a really hot topic and really popular, I don't think because a lot of people actually cared about, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They just were like, oh, crap, I have to do this thing because it's popular now. They didn't really do a good job of it. And now that it's becoming less popular, or at the very least less mandatory, you see them backing off. But I think that's a really good thing because that means that the people who actually care about doing this the right way, many of whom, by the way, don't even use the term DEI. They're interested in the principles, not in just gaining popularity points by saying, look what I'm doing. I think they're going to start really standing out from the pack because they're doing this the right way. They're doing this intentionally, and they're not doing this for brownie points.
That's interesting. So that was going to be one of my questions. Were a lot of businesses, were they doing it on their own accord because, like you said, either it was popular or that's what they truly believed and they wanted to implement it? Or was it forced upon them by government regulation saying if you wanted government contracts, if you wanted money, if you wanted to have a bank account, kind of the ESG movement that we've seen for the few years as well, was it forced upon them? So I'm curious to see in the private sector how many colleges, private businesses were implementing it on their own because they liked it or because they were being forced to do so based on government regulation.
I can't speak to the government regulation angle because I don't feel I know enough to weigh in on that because I don't know exactly what pressures were being levied And I think part of that's actually intentional because there's been a lot of soft pressure, shall we say, rather than explicit legislation. But I will say there's been a lot of social pressure. We live in an era now where, like, for every tragedy somebody that occurs, the corporations have to weigh in and they have to have an opinion, right? That we live in this era where corporations want to survive. They apparently need to weigh in on politics, whether it's who you buy your jeans from or your fast food or what have you. And so I think that economic pressure is what led a lot of people and a lot of corporations to embrace DEI. And I think you see that, if I were going to bring up an example of somebody who does DEI right and did it because he clearly believes in it, I would bring up Mark Cuban. And the way he does DEI is very different than how people stereotypically think about it. It's not about quotas. It's not about lowering standards. It's about bringing everyone up to a standard of excellence. It's about intentionally seeking other people's viewpoints, not just, keeping to your own in-group, but seeking diverse viewpoints. Mark Cuban's a big fan of this, and he's seen the dividends pay off. But then you see somebody like Zuckerberg and Facebook, where their approach to DEI seems to be far more reactionary, far more about keeping people happy, which, in 21st century America, that keeping everyone happy is impossible. And that's doubly true on social media, right?
That's true. So, and the reactionary is really interesting. Like you said, I mean, with Meta, with Mark Zuckerberg, he's announced this week that he's ending the DEI. Is it because, obviously, it's not a change of heart. I don't think of like, we're all of a sudden not going to promote this wokeness in my company, because he's one of the most woke individuals that there is. So is he doing it just because he sees the writing on the wall that it's not as popular? Or it could be because, well, I need to work with the Trump administration. I need to start changing things so I don't get in trouble with the investigations from Congress. So I'm going to appease them by just pandering and doing what I think is going to make them happy. Because that was kind of an odd statement from him this week.
It was. And obviously we can't know what it is, but it certainly does not seem to me that he seems particularly dedicated to DEI, and that this is something he deeply, deeply believed in. Again, like I just go back to Mark Cuban because he's such a prominent individual, and he's gotten in spats with people about this on Twitter. Like, he's somebody who clearly believes in practicing what he preaches. And then there are people who do it and don't necessarily do it the best way, but they're still very dedicated. And they at least, stick to their guns. And then for Zuckerberg to have just said, I'm ending it, it was a really weird statement. It was a really odd statement. And to me, kind of suggests he didn't believe in what he was doing.
Yeah. It's really interesting. We're talking with Dr. Aaron Pomerantz. He's a social psychologist, researcher, also contributor to Young Voices. You also had an opinion piece out of Real Clear Politics as well, discussing DEI efforts and Jewish students. I have not heard much on this conversation lately. Are we still seeing some of the pro-Hamas rallies going on in college campuses? And are we still seeing an attack on Jewish students on different campuses around the nation?
Well, right now we're not, because it's still winter break, but, talk to me in a couple of weeks, it won't try. I'm certainly not going to bet against it. I mean, looking at the wildfires in California, and I remember literally just making a joke with one of my friends and going, like, can't wait for somebody to blame this on us now. And then within like a couple of like hours, Code Pink or whatever it was, we're in D.C., wasting senators' time saying this is because you support the war in Israel, and I'm like, this is Simone Biles levels of mental gymnastics to blame Jews and Israel for this, but they're doing it, and so it wouldn't shock me. Maybe the Trump inauguration will distract people for a time, but I do think we're going to see a lot of that. And right before the semester ended, we saw, and even over the break, we've seen so-called DEI professionals. And this is kind of reflecting what I said earlier, like the research world versus the application world. You're seeing DEI professionals say things like, we don't need to help Jews. We're not going to help Jews. They're powerful and they help themselves. And that's just, that is not what DEI is supposed to do. Like I was privileged to get to work with one of the foremost scholars on DEI. And when she talks about it, she talks about the idea that, inclusion balances belonging and uniqueness, making sure everyone feels like they at the very least could be part of the group if they're not already a part of the group, and appreciating individuals for what makes them different. And I'm like, in what universe does Jews are all rich and I don't have to, I don't feel the need to protect them? I'm like, you're not a DEI professional. It's like talking to me about what a great vegan you are as you're barbecuing a brisket. It's just nonsense.
It's nonsense. Yeah, Aaron, hang on the line. We got to take a hard break here. You're right. For diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're not including the Jewish community very well because, well, you're not part of our Cool Kids Club, so you're on your own and we don't like you anyways. Kind of an odd statement. We got to take a break. One more segment around the corner for this hour on your weekend edition of The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. Where Hoosier-holics gather every week. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
I want to tell you about my friends over at Americans for Prosperity. We have officially transitioned away from the election mode where they dominated this last year, knocking on over like 20 million doors nationwide, 4 million advocates nationwide, the largest grassroots organization in the entire nation. They got chapters in every single state. They've transitioned away from that election mode, now going into policy mode. We have Congress working in D.C. We have state legislative sessions all across the nation that are taking up and getting back into the capitals, doing their thing, starting off in January now as well. That means you need to be aware of what policies that we're advocating for. We've done the election. We've gotten the people into office. Now we need to make sure that they're doing what we want them to do. That's what Americans for Prosperity is there for. Go to prosperityispossible.com. It's very simple. Type in your email, no charge. You can donate if you want to, but you don't have to. Get the information. Know what's going on in D.C., know what's going on in your community, know what's going on in your state, and you can be part of that. You can learn who to contact, which elected officials to contact and talk to, and make sure they advocate for the right set of policies. Go to prosperityispossible.com, prosperityispossible.com. Go talk to them, see what's going on, be involved. Now's the time. We have a short window to be extremely effective in our policy changes and hitting that reset button all across the nation, and they're going to be a major step in that as well. ProsperityIsPossible.com. Americans for Prosperity, great partners with us right here on The Voice of Reason. Right now, we are hanging out with Dr. Aaron Pomerantz, a social psychologist and researcher. His latest piece, DEI efforts must protect Jewish students or they're going to fail. That's out of Real Clear Politics. You can find that on that website. Aaron, from a psychology standpoint, can I just ask, I've never understood the fascination. Everybody in every culture around the world, for whatever reason, for all these thousands of years, why is it that the Jews are always the fun one to pick on and hate? I don't understand the obsession with the Jewish community and why they're the ones, like you write in your piece, how they're the rich ones controlling the universities and they just need to take care of themselves. We're not going to protect them with our DEI push. Why is it that everybody just hates on the Jews? I don't understand this.
I mean, if I had the answer to that, I think I'd be a lot wealthier than I am. I suspect part of it has to deal with the fact that, I mean, we literally are the people that so many different terms have been invented for, right? And one of them is the diaspora. We were exiled 2,000 years ago. We've remained a relatively traceable, notably distinct people and culture and ethnicity, and under Christian rulership, under Islamic rulership, we've maintained that distinction. Both Christianity and Islam seem to kind of bristle at that, the idea that you don't think that our religion is better than yours. And then both of them have also resulted in, especially under Christianity, where charging interest was seen as a sin, the sin of usury. But at the same time, charging interest is really kind of important when you're in a cash-based banking society. So who became the bankers? Jewish people. And then it just becomes a thing of jealousy and success. So I think we're just a very convenient group for disliking. I think that there's also been, specifically in the context of what we're talking about, with DEI and stuff, you can trace a lot of that back to the Soviets. The Soviets did not like Jews. They were the first to really come up with this brilliant idea that if we just use the term Zionist instead of Jew, we can say whatever we want, and people should not be able to attack us for it. Which is why it was, this is very integral, in fact, to the relationships in Israel and the U.S. because both countries were like, oh yeah, the Soviets do not like either of us, and the Soviets have this long history of anti-Semitism. I mean, look at the doctor's plot with Stalin basically planning to have his own little Holocaust until he fortunately died. But they were able to much more successfully whitewash their hatred with the conspiracies about Zionism, and those conspiracies are still around today. It's literally the pro-Palestinian movement just regurgitates a lot of these same things. Oh, Israel is a settler colonial project. What do you mean by it's a settler colonial project?
Yeah. It's very strange. I don't understand it. The hate that we're allowed, and I've never seen, I got to admit, I never thought I would see so publicly such anti-Semitism that we've seen over the past year, especially on the college campuses, and people hating on the Jewish community and Jewish students. It is Dr. Aaron Pomerantz, social psychologist, researcher, Young Voices contributor. You can go see his latest piece at realclearpolitics.com. We are out of time, my friend. Aaron, Happy New Year to you. Keep up this fight. Let's get you back on and get another update real soon. I am optimistic and encouraged that we're going to see a cultural shift on DEI. I'm optimistic we're going to see a cultural shift on just the whole LGBTQ movement overall and this entire identity politics conversation. Maybe we'll see something different a little bit later on. Aaron, we appreciate it. We'll get you back on again soon. Back at it a little bit later. It is the Voice of Reason's Weekend Edition. Lots more coming up. Stay here.